Hello, and how's everyone doing today? Welcome to the channel if you're new. If you're a returning viewer, I'm glad to have you back. And welcome to another episode of Justin Talks Games. Today I want to talk about Resident Evil 9. Resident Evil 9 is a really big hot topic right now, especially with it being shown at the Game Awards. And who was shown at the Game Awards? Leon S. Kennedy. One thing I have to say is I believe that I was one of the people who said, that Leon's not going to be in the game, blah, blah, blah. And, obviously I was wrong. I'll take accountability. I was wrong. Leon's 100% in the game. They showed him at the Game Awards. Visually, he looks pretty cool. I'm not too keen on his gameplay, but he looks pretty cool. That being said, there was a interview that was done. It must have been done after the Game Awards or very, very early this morning, that addressed a lot of things to do with Resident Evil 9. I do have some bullet points that someone on Reddit nicely put into bullet points, so I screenshotted it. And so if you see me looking this way, it's because I'm looking at the bullet points here that I want to talk about. So let's get into all of these, and I'll give my opinions on these. So the first one is Leon and Grace are the only two playable characters in Resident Evil 9. Now, that doesn't surprise me, to be honest, and I'm totally okay with that. Because all the other Resident Evil games, dating all the way back even to Resident Evil 1, 1996, had two playable characters. You had your Chris and Jill in Resident Evil 1. You had your Leon Claire in 2, Jill and Carlos. In 3, obviously, Claire and Chris in Code Veronica. And then, so forth, whatever. With the exception of Resident Evil 6 having, 2, 4, 6, at least 8 characters that you can play. It was insane. But we're not going to talk about Resident Evil 6 today. So I'm pretty okay with that. Doesn't surprise me. That's something that's been a long mainstay since literally the very beginning. So I'm cool with that. Let's see here. What else do we got? Grace's gameplay is based on Resident Evil 2, while Leon's is based more on Resident Evil 4. This is what I'm talking about, the gameplay. There was a very small clip that came out, I think it was last week or whatever. It wasn't very long ago, that showed Grace in a dark hallway, and there was a zombie coming down the stairs, and she shot the zombie, and it looked very, very similar to the Resident Evil 2 remake, and the Resident Evil 1 remake. It had that nice dark grittiness to it, which I really enjoyed. The very end of the newest trailer shows Leon's gameplay, and I gotta be honest, it doesn't surprise me, but at the same time, it looks very loose. If that's I don't know how to explain it properly. To be honest, I've never been the best at explaining things. But it looks very, very loose, like Resident Evil 6's gameplay. Resident Evil 6 was very loose with the camera and the controls, and it was a mess. And from the quick, probably, 15, 20 seconds that we saw of Leon's gameplay, it looked, especially when he did the roundhouse kick and this and that, it looked very like Resident Evil 6, and I'm not a fan of that. But I could be wrong, though. I could be wrong. I mean, we only seen a couple of seconds. And it could look, because the camera could be zoomed out, because you can zoom the camera in the remakes, and I believe in Resident Evil 6 as well, you can zoom the camera in. So maybe the camera is zoomed out, which made it look not great. If Leon's gameplay feels, in terms of the gunplay and stuff like that, if it feels grounded and more solid, like tightly, tight knit, like the Resident Evil 4 remake, then I'll probably enjoy his sections. But it's just from what I've seen, it looks very loose, like Resident Evil 6, and I don't like that. But then again, the game's not out yet. I haven't played it. I've only seen a couple of seconds, just like everybody else in the world. So I can't instantly be like, I hate this, blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying from what I've seen there, kind of has me iffy. I really like what I've seen from Grace's gameplay, though. Okay, so let's move on to the next one here. Leon has as in with quotations here, big secret. Elpis is involved. Elpis is the new virus. I'm assuming it's the new virus in the game because it says Elpis on a computer screen or something. So I'm assuming that's the new virus or something. Leon has a big secret about this. Do I have any ideas of what this big secret could be? Personally, no, I don't. I really don't know what it could be. I know a lot of this is very umbrella tied, but at this current point in time, I'm not too sure what his big secret could be for this Elpis. So we're going to move on to the next one. Let's see here. You switch between Grace and Leon as the game progresses, like a flow, it says in quotations. Nakanishi, that's the game director, if you guys don't know. He's the one I was talking about, who also did Resident Evil 7 and Revelations. Nakanishi didn't know if people would like it at first, but has found the experience enjoyable. Compares it to getting into a cold bath after getting out of a sauna. I know a lot of people were hoping for it to be two separate scenarios, kind of like Resident Evil 2 Remake. It seems like this is not the case. It kind of seems like it's one long story where you play as one character for a bit and then you flow into another character, and then perhaps you flow. Maybe it's like a wave. Maybe that's how maybe I'm taking it. Perhaps you start as one character, you go to the next character, and then you go back and you go like this and you go like this and this, and at the very end, like maybe it ties everything together. I think that would be kind of interesting. I think that'd be really cool. Okay, so let's go into the next one here. Leon is, of course, playable in first person. They've put a lot of thought into making it possible to play in both perspectives with no issues on both characters. That's one thing I was kind of interested about, thinking about, when I seen Leon's gameplay last night. Just the way how he did the roundhouse kick and how he did that. I wonder how that would translate to first person. Obviously, they have their work. They've done everything they can to make that experience the best it can be. So I trust them on this. Will I be playing Resident Evil 9 in first person? That's maybe some people were thinking about asking me. My first playthrough, no. I'm probably going to play third person. When I do it on the channel, I'm probably going to do it third person because that's my preferred. I love the old camera styles, and the closest to that, obviously, now is the third person. So I'll be sticking to that. I will probably, dabble in first person to see what it's like, but most likely I'll be playing the whole entire game in third person. Okay. Leon is like a cool uncle. His return to Raccoon City will have a huge effect on him. That doesn't really surprise me because he was very young. I think he was like 21 or something like that during the events of Resident Evil 1, so he's quite young. And his literal first day on the job was the outbreak. So I can kind of understand it'll have a huge effect on him. Obviously, he knows a lot about Umbrella as well and all that, so it'll be interesting to see how it'll affect him. In my opinion, and I've seen a few other people also agree with me on this, is that they really should have had, maybe Jill as one of the characters. I mean, maybe she'll show up. We don't know, right? But it says here that the only playable characters are Leon and Grace, but it doesn't mean that other characters will be absent. We don't know, right? They haven't said anything. They haven't hinted at anything. We're not too sure. In my opinion, though, like I said, I feel like Jill should have been the other character, or I hope that she's involved in some way, because she has more of a tie to Raccoon City, um, and in my opinion, a worse experience of Raccoon City than Leon did personally. That's how I feel. She used to live there. She worked there. Um, she's seen a lot of her, a couple of her friends die there. Brad, of course, right in front of her eyes. I know people are going to say, "Oh no, he died in the bar." Well, I would say to those people, the original and the remake is canon. So either way he dies, you can pick however way you want him to die. I'm picking the original. So she's seen him die. As well as being infected by Nemesis, um, and almost dying there, and just narrowly escaping the city being destroyed. Physically seeing the missile shoot right past the helicopter and seeing her entire town, her livelihood, everything just being wiped away. Me personally, I feel like that's probably way more traumatic than what Leon went through, and that's not downplaying Leon, saying oh, Leon shouldn't be suffering, because he'd be suffering too. But I feel that Jill, um, it probably affects her more than she lets on, or that she says. You can actually, and you can see how much the Resident Evil 1 game affects her. In the start of the Resident Evil 3 remake, you can see she has nightmares. She has lots of stuff that are bothering her. So on top of that, everything that happened in Resident Evil 3, she probably has a lot of stuff going on that she doesn't talk about. So personally, I think it should have been Jill instead of Leon. Let's see here. The reason they didn't split Grace and Leon's campaigns is that they wanted to combine action and horror. They want to achieve a sense of satisfaction that hadn't been achieved until now. Um, that's where I'm kind of on the fence about things. Um, because you'll go from like all the potentially horror scary stuff to instantly roundhouse kicking and punching and this and that and cracking jokes and stuff. To me, that could possibly break the tone of the game. And then going from the laughing, the cracking, the joke. I mean, I'm not saying Leon's gonna laugh, but like him cracking his comments and kicking and doing all this crazy stuff, and then like going back into Grace's gameplay. I don't know how that's gonna work, to be honest. I would assume that they've done a lot of testing. They've played it quite a bit to refine this. So while I'm not too sure about it, how I feel about this, again, I'm just reading this. I'm not viewing it in the game, right? So reading this, I could be really like, I don't know, like kind of like how I am in a sense. But in the game, it could flow very well and just be very, very good. Just so here's the thing here. Leon still makes jokes. His sarcasm and wit have become more polished. My thing is, and I know I said this in another one of my videos. I don't know if anybody's seen that video or not. It's one of my Justin Talks Games videos. Basically, what I said was Leon was never a jokester before. He never was this like comedy type character. You know what I mean? And to see that he still makes his jokes, his sarcasm has been more polished. So that could mean that they made him even more of a jokester now, which I don't know how to feel about that. I mean, I don't know. I guess obviously it could be a way to I can't think of the word. It's his way of coping with things, perhaps. The joking. I know people who deal with traumatic events, their way of coping with things is joking and stuff and cracking jokes. Maybe, I mean, that's why he does it. But They even started doing that in the remake of 2. They made him, where he's like cracking jokes and stuff at the zombies, or at least making, like dumb comments and stuff, which, I didn't like that, obviously. But I'm not going to get into a whole thing because that's not what this video is about, but I don't know. Leon will be pushed to his limits more than ever before. That line doesn't surprise me because they kind of say something like that anytime a game comes out with their new characters, or at least they hint towards something like that. So that one doesn't really surprise me, doesn't really mean much to me. I can't really see them doing anything super duper duper crazy, like, killing them off or whatever. I mean, maybe, pushed to his limits than before. Maybe it could be he retires. He's just sick and tired of it, and he's done. And he's at a point where he's done, so he just retires. I don't know. But yeah, that whole line, he's pushed more than ever before, doesn't really mean much because every single game that he's in, he's always pushed more and more to his limits. And, to me, that just, it's kind of like just words to make the players want to play it more because, and that's the last one. It just says here more detailed gameplay footage coming at the Resident Evil showcase in January. I don't know why they put in brackets next month because, obviously January is next month. But yeah, that's basically what I wanted to talk to you guys about. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on these things. As for mine, like I said, the Grace gameplay on Resident Evil 2, while Leon is more Resident Evil 4. I don't super duper duper have an issue with that. It's more so that Leon's looks very, very loose like Resident Evil 6. That's my issue. It doesn't look like 4, it looks like 6. And I just don't want his whole section to, like, his whole, like, gameplay thing to be basically, like, to take a book out of, Devil May Cry's meme stuff, wacky wahoo, Pizza Man, where he's like, wah, kicking zombies and, like, whatever, and there's no real seriousness to it. I'm hoping it's not like that. Because Resident Evil 4 Remake, while, yes, he was still doing his kicks and stuff, it was grounded, and, yeah, he was making his comments and stuff, but, he was still a little bit more serious. And I know some people didn't like Leon in Resident Evil 4 Remake. I did, in a way, because he wasn't joking 24/7. There were a couple of parts I didn't like. He was kind of being rude to Ashley and stuff, but, and then, like I said, the big secret, I don't know what that could be, right? Leon has a big secret. I don't know what that could be. Watch, it's going to be like Leon worked for Umbrella the entire time, or something crazy like that. Actually, that'd be hilarious. Could you imagine that? The whole entire time was literally a cover-up. Even in Resident Evil 2, it's up to us to take down Umbrella. But then, like, in reality, he actually worked for Umbrella. Like, that'd be... Could you imagine that? Oh, man. So many people would be mad at that. Woo! I don't know. I don't know what the big secret could be. The first person and third person, like I said, that's pretty cool. As I said, I'll be sticking to third person. And, yeah, the huge effect on him, like I said, basically it should have been Jill, But, yeah, I'd like to know your guys' thoughts and your opinions on Resident Evil 9, on Leon's return. I think, as much as I feel that they they use Leon way too much, it is cool to see an original character, so I am glad that Leon's there. But yeah, I guess we'll have to see how it turns out. Yeah, like I said, if you guys have any opinions or thoughts on the matter, feel free to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, all that fun kind of stuff, because I would love to know, and I will see you guys in my next video.